much exercise, it doesn't really matter what you use.
Yep. All right, 1 o'clock. Okay. You ready?
No.
All right. This is the Holiday Island City Planning Commission meeting for February 8th, 2022. Calling the meeting to order. Let's start with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Holwood. Here. Commissioner Graves.
Here.
Commissioner Mills.
Here.
Vice Chair Pittman.
Here.
Chairman Keys.
Here.
Secretary Dumas. Here. All present.
I declare a quorum. Meeting minutes from January 25th. Any discussion on the meeting minutes?
Wait a minute. And you're gonna approve the agenda? Yeah. I'll
Very detailed minutes.
As always.
approve the agenda first.
You gotta approve the
No.
agenda.
And he,
Okay.
I
Make a motion, we approve the
and I
agenda.
seconded it.
Ken moved to approve the agenda. Pat seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Now the minutes. Motion to approve the minutes of January 25th.
Did you do that?
Move to approve.
Linda made a motion to approve.
Second.
Jerry seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved.
Come on.
No reports. I'm going down to old business then. Continued discussion of proposed zoning regulations, and I'm gonna turn it over to Lynn.
Okay. From the discussion outline, hopefully you have that. I kind of captured the pieces that are in the document. The first thing that we talked about last time that needed to be fixed is in the definitions and for a crop agricultural. So I wrote the primary use of any land for the purpose of growing plants, crops, trees, and other agricultural forestry products does not include the hobby gardens as an accessory use or personal consumption of the crop. So what I picked up on was the primary use of the lot. We talked about that, and included or discluded the hobby gardens as accessory use on your own lot. So that look good?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay, next definition we had to do some work on was to define the duplex, a two-family dwelling. I added the text at the end of that, having singular ownership of the entire two-unit dwelling and the land upon which it is constructed. The discussion we had was, you know, a duplex isn't a duplex if it's split in two and there's two separate owners.
Right.
Okay.
That makes it different than the townhouse.
I was just gonna say, this is minor. Do we wanna use family in there and as opposed to something else? Family kind of implies something other than.
I think that's a pretty,
Yeah.
But
it's
it's a
universal
generic
name.
term all the way through single-family residences.
I know, and that's, if you look up, Google it, that's exactly the definition you're gonna get. I'm just thinking of, when I was in college, I had a roommate. We weren't really a family, but we were renting.
Family is defined in here.
Oh, is it? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just found it.
And the other thing that
What does
in
it say?
other jurisdictions, and it's another minor point, they included a term, no interior connection between the two units.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if we need that or not.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
And I can't remember whether it was Tulsa or someplace else I'd agree with it. They,
No walls or windows connecting the two
Yeah,
units.
Connecting door, whatever.
two-unit home, I wrote it down, with no interior connection.
I think it's a good put on there.
Yeah.
So we could have an exterior, because patios could be, but an interior connection kind of.
That's smart.
Otherwise, it's just a one unit.
Other than that, I think it's fine.
You want me to read what it says on family?
Sure.
It says one or more persons related by blood, marriage, adoption, or a group of not more than 5 unrelated persons living together and subsisting in common as a single, nonprofit housekeeping unit utilizing only one kitchen. A family may include domestic servants, empty employed by said family.
No, it may
A
not.
single-family dwelling may not have more than 2 adults residing in the dwelling per established bedroom and may include minor children.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we had that definition. That works. I was just thinking more in general, family.
So if I amend the end of that, saying, and having no internal connection between the units.
Interior.
Would there be an occasion where, you have a common interest that,
Just slam it.
like a foyer or whatever?
No, I don't think that would be an interior connection, would it?
Okay.
You still have 2 separate doors into the 2 units.
I,
And I don't know if they need to be spelled out, but, that would be acceptable.
Well, I'm just reading from another.
I remember reading that someplace too.
If I had a memory, I remember where it was, I read it.
Okay, next definition we had to work on, I had to create one for a funeral home, so I added an establishment with facilities for the preparation of the dead for burial or cremation, for the reviewing of the body and for funerals. Cremation facilities not covered by this definition. So we had a distinction of where we're going to allow a funeral home versus a crematorium. I didn't define crematorium in our statute, it's in our regs, but this keeps them separate.
Yeah, that's the only question I had was, are we going to define crematorium somewhere? You know, probably under commercial.
Okay. We also had a discussion then for need for defining what a self-storage unit was. And it's the storage units, 2 or more, joined at the side and or rear walls, having an individual exterior door for each unit intended for rental to individual parties.
It's good to me.
yeah,
That's different than the warehouse units that we talked about at the end of our list that we already had. And then the last, we just added some text to 140709, the government district zone, so it's not reserved, but it says, uses of this district are determined by the respective federal government agency or department. Have some text under that definition.
has to be federal.
Yeah, because we named the zone government-F for federal, so. Okay, then the last, no, that's not the last note, in 141607, the issue that we've had on our table for a couple of meetings is, can we determine how old a manufactured unit can be to be moved into our R1M zones? So last we heard, Dan, maybe you were going to come up with some answers.
Yeah, the notes I made on that were just some points that I think we need to address in however we end up wording this. First of all, I think we should prohibit mobile homes, period. In other words, anything built prior to 1976.
I believe we have that in the reg.
Yeah. And then, you know, of course, any unit that's already here and in place would be grandfathered, as long as it was properly maintained. No new manufactured housing installations. Wait, let me start over. New manufactured housing installations covered by this standard, manufactured or and or rep responsibility. That meaning that if somebody wanted to bring in a brand new manufactured home, and I'm kind of tying this into the building code because I want to put something in the building code about manufactured homes as well. And in reading the standards for manufactured homes, the federal standards, it says that the manufacturer on new installations, the manufacturer is responsible for the unit meeting the federal standard. And they have to have inspection, you know, standards, you know, kind of supervised by the government. If there has to be some completion of construction on site, in other words, it's a double wide or something like that, or you have to install secondary, you know, air conditioning or something like that on site, the manufacturer or the representative of the manufacturer that's doing the installation is responsible for that inspection to make sure that when it's all complete, that it meets the federal standard. So somehow I need to build that into the building code too, that if somebody wants to move a manufactured home in, they have to show evidence that, to the building inspector, that it meets all the federal standards. So that leaves, what if somebody wants to move in a manufactured home that was built after 1976, but it could have been 1977, it's still pretty darn old, but it was manufactured originally under the new standard. And I think we would have a hard time prohibiting somebody from moving something in here just because it's old, you know, if it's in really good shape. So I think we should have some kind of a point in here about used units being brought in that were manufactured since, you know, to the new standard, must pass an inspection by a certified representative.
Did they lift it off of their previous concrete foundation where they were sitting and bring them here somehow?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can move a stick built house as far as that goes.
Yeah,
Most of them, they just put the wheels back on.
they jack them up, the wheels back
Oh,
up.
wait, are we talking about mobile homes or
No, we're talking about
manufactured?
manufactured homes.
Manufactured home is the term that replaces mobile home in
I know.
1976.
There is no such thing,
Okay.
there is no such thing technically as a mobile home anymore, unless it was built before 1976.
The same
Now
thing,
they're called manufactured home residential
residential design.
design.
That replaces modular home, little term.
Essentially the same concept.
Yeah,
Um,
they're transported on
We
wheels.
really can't do anything with, as long as it's built after 77, other than
require that
requires.
that it repass an inspection before that we would issue an occupancy permit.
Doesn't seem like it would be much different than inspecting a site-built home.
It wouldn't be, except for the
I
fact
guess
that
you can't see inside the walls.
the whoever does the inspection has to be approved by the federal government, by HUD or whoever, because it's a federal standard.
I mean,
Can't be somebody familiar with the federal, can we really get, or could they really, is that realistic that they could get such a person?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't wanna pass a regulation that's so difficult that it's impossible to do.
yeah, why do you need that?
We wanna make sure it hasn't been modified, it still meets the,
But can't a building inspector check
don't
the
know.
outlets and check the plumbing and determine?
That 1976 is 40 years.
The federal standard, I haven't read the federal standard, but I'll bet it's this thick.
No, I'm just saying that, just like they would a site-built home, can't a building inspector examine the plumbing and the electric outlets and?
but is our building inspector gonna be familiar with the federal standards
Yeah.
put in place in
Well,
1977?
he's not assuring the federal standards. is
Yes,
he?
he is.
But he has, that's what I'm saying needs to happen. I don't want somebody going to an auction somewhere, buying an old manufactured home that was built since 1976, that may have had 2 garages added onto it at some point, that they, you know, tear down and put wheels on and drag in here to Holiday Island and set it up.
You don't even have to go to some auction, there's one on Facebook, Marketplace,
Yeah,
for sale in Holiday Island. Not from Holiday Island, but they put it on this website. 1970s mobile home, needs remodeling.
You can do a lot of damage in one of those in 40 years.
Well, whatever regulations you put in here has to be doable.
That's right, that's my point. But we can't, I don't know that we could expect our building inspector to be familiar with federal standards for a mobile home.
And then how are we gonna acquire somebody that?
Well, I know, that's
It's
what I mean,
not-
I don't wanna.
the burden isn't on us to find somebody to do the inspection.
No, but we can't.
The burden is on the person that wants to move the unit
Well, we
in.
can't put a restriction that's impossible for them to do either. I mean, if it's impossible or nearly impossible to find a federal inspector to do that, I don't wanna pass something that they can't.
So what's the alternative?
I don't know.
Do we have any
Tell them they can't move it in.
do we have any reference to other cities that, I mean, that would, you know, whether that's, you know,
I don't.
to take Pat's point, is it doable?
If it's doable, I don't have a problem with it. If it's absolutely impossible to do, I don't think we should be passing something that you cannot do. And it doesn't have to be a 77, it could be an 80. It could, I mean, it could be.
You could tear one up in a lot.
It could be 2 years old.
It could be 2 years old and a piece of crap, but that's, we're not.
Well, I think Ken may have a good point. There's bound to be other communities with, manufactured housing parks or whatever. Why can't we?
You know, there's mobile home parks, you know, all around us. And they have that, surely they have some kind of restrictions, because you I mean, you don't want to drag something in that's.
Or the city has restrictions.
I think, I don't know whether Berryville has one or not, I'm not pretty sure Green Forest does.
Eureka's got the bulk of the mobile home parks, RV parks and mobile home parks.
One RV park's a little bit.
Yes.
There's a mobile home park in Eureka with it, we did Meals on Wheels to, down there off the
Yeah.
highway.
It might be outside the city limits.
That I don't know.
Well, the one I'm thinking of is, right at the Kings River before you cross the bridge, going toward.
Well, that's out in the country.
Yeah.
Berryville
might have one inside. the
I
city
thought
limits.
Green Forest, I thought I'd seen one.
And Green Forest might.
But there's one down there in Eureka, it's 2 blocks off, less than 2 blocks off the highway.
Over there across from the Bavarian and that center.
And that, not the Bavarian.
The old
It's
Korean.
from the, what's that restaurant, the, Hickory or?
Yep. I don't think that this is that far-fetched to require that be inspected, because the federal standard for modification of a manufactured home requires that if it has the certification sticker on the mobile home that said that it was manufactured and inspected to that standard, that whoever does the modification has to certify that after the modification is done, the original structure still meets the standard. That if you build a garage onto your mobile home or onto your manufactured home, and you tie the roofs together, you have to somehow certify that the load-bearing capacity of that new roof structure still meets the federal standard. So the federal standard kind of dictates that this be done.
Okay.
And I guess we could, but I don't think we want to just be the only community around here that ignores the federal standard. So if you want to buy an old trailer and, put it on a lot someplace, go to Holiday Island.
I'm not suggesting we be the only community, that's why I suggested we look at other communities.
I'd
See
say
what
put
kind
it
of
in there.
regulation they had.
If it won't fly, we'll change it later.
Yeah, that's probably what we have to do. Maybe it's not as undoable as it seems to me. Obviously, if they put a new one
Well,
in.
if they have to find the inspector, that's fine too.
Yeah, if a new one is certified by a manufacturer, then they can get somebody.
you know, if they bought, you know, there's a lot of trailer or mobile home dealers, and, you know, they take in trade-ins.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we contacted one of those, they would have to re-inspect it.
Yeah, first and foremost, you know, if somebody wants to move a manufactured home into Holiday Island, that's not the kind of thing you just hook up to your fifth wheel pickup and pull in here.
Probably pretty
You know,
costly.
This
you're
is
gonna have to
Arkansas,
hire somebody who knows what he's doing anyway.
Let's leave it in, that's, and if we have to deal with it.
What I penciled in then, at the end of the first sentence, it says 14-1608 D through H are required, period. Used MHU must pass an inspection provided by the owner to ensure compliance with federal standards.
That's it.
Yes, sounds good to me.
Yeah,
That causes a problem, we'll deal with it later.
I say, but
I'll have to use similar verbiage in the building code.
Okay. The next sentence then talks about the prohibits the placement of mobile homes within its corporate limits. So you're concerned about doing that, it's in this very one.
Yep.
Okay. And we had some discussion about fees and what things are going to cost us for posting and reviews and documents and what have you. So I did some research, found this fees from a different municipality and pasted in 1430.01 and did, you know, some modifications to make it fit us, I guess. So my point or my question is this suitable for us, and then are we going to have additional fees?
Question number one.
Okay.
Explain it to me. I'm not quite sure. It looks pretty intimidating, and I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at here.
1430-01 on page 58. It says there's fees that shall be imposed to cover a portion of the cost of public notices and other expenses as may be incurred in connection with processing of applications, plan reviews, amendments, permits, variances, and other matters pertaining to the planning council, building inspector, and or board of adjustment. So it says that we're going to charge fees for certain zoning type questions or issues.
Right.
Okay. And then it sets out in paragraph B that there's an attached schedule of fees, and then the prohibition in C, before any action shall be taken as provided in these regulations, the applicant shall submit a fee with the application in accordance with the city codes. Under no condition shall said sum or any part thereof be refunded for failure of said action to be approved by the city. So basically says you have to pay the fee, you don't expect to be refunded if you get denied.
Okay. So if I want to, let's say I own a parcel here in Colorado, and I want to divide that up into 4 lots and build houses. The first thing I have to do is bring a concept plot to the planning commission.
Yeah, because
with a $50 fee.
You'd be a developer. Is that the fee I have in the appendix?
Yeah,
Okay.
concept plot, $50.
Okay.
And then everybody says, okay, that looks pretty good. And it's gonna be residential, so what's a concurrent plot?
Good question.
flat.
Plat.
I'm not certain.
Page 60.
You got a concurrent plat, you got a preliminary and a final, and you paid for each one of those?
This is the fee schedule that I copied, so
Yeah.
we can use it or not, but that's my answer to the question. I'm not certain what it is.
I wonder if we need to go there.
Where is that? 'Cause
This is on page 62.
that's
It's
what
the
I'm on.
appendix.
I don't see it concurrent. Where is it?
It's the,
Oh, it's the heading. Okay.
yeah, it's a heading.
The heading.
I'm not certain what a concurrent is.
Well, we don't know what it is, we don't read it.
Okay.
I would say preliminary and final, would be, concurrent makes no,
Yeah, because so if, again, if I'm the mini developer here and I wanna build 4 houses, I'd have to come with a concept at the original nod, that cost me $50.
Yeah.
And I would come back later with a preliminary but more fully developed, plan. And that would cost me $200.
Yeah.
And then when I got all of the engineering drawings and the street elevations and all.
It's a different timing. The preliminary plat is what they bring with their complete development plan, that the planning commission would have to approve or disapprove, or put conditions on it. The builder goes out then and does his work. When it's all done, he brings back a final plat of where precisely all these corners are and where all this stuff lies.
Right.
So that's what gets filed with the county when it's all done and we approve the final plat.
Do we need a definition of that in
Yeah.
these fee schedules?
What process does this fit into?
Well,
Is there a documented process?
there isn't a documented process in the zoning ordinances. It's in the building code. It'd be in the process you go through to get things done.
It would be
It's
in,
more than building though.
Well, it's development. Right.
yeah,
Sort of a
There-
larger thing.
There is a section that we haven't approved, and it had to do with subdivisions, and it might be in there that I haven't studied. The process might be defined.
We're gonna X out concurrent.
I think, I would agree. I don't know what a concurrent plat would be in the timing. And I got this advice from the planning chair from Eureka. Talked with her quite a bit.
Yeah, I think if you would put some definition, just make a note alongside of each one of these tables that says, you know, what this step of the process involves.
Do they have some, code on this that we could, that these are referring to, that we could copy also?
I do have the Eureka Springs subdivision text. I don't have it with me, but I have it. So it's okay that we're gonna charge these kinds of fees, or charge for these kinds of actions. Now let's talk about the amounts. Are they okay?
That was my question. How do these compare with what we're paying now?
Yeah.
They're not paying any of it now. We don't have any
We
subdivision.
don't have any, this
They don't have any control.
is not building,
Yeah.
this is.
But we have examples going on right now that are gonna fall smack dab into this. You know, they're up in the park, they're building those storage units. It's unit 215, 1C3 is the totality of the acreage. The only thing they have on paper right now, as far as a plan to do with that, is to put storage units along one end of it. There is no fully developed plan for the rest of that acreage. And, of course, this was all started before, you know, we came along. But if this were to happen next year at this time, before they would get a building permit to build their storage units, they would have to come to the planning commission with a fairly well thought out plan for that whole acreage.
Yeah, that, all of them, they don't have roads in and around it yet.
You know, one of the things that we, you know, one of the things that I think we need to try to get some control over is, you know, in the past, there intentionally was no comprehensive plan of what to do with an entire parcel or an entire area. And the logic was, well, we don't know what we're gonna do with it yet, so we're just gonna leave it undefined until we figure out what we're gonna do with it.
So the developer.
Well, what you end up with is hodgepodge. You know, well, this seems like a good idea today, this seems like a good idea today, and you end up with a hodgepodge instead of a plan.
Or you could put practically anything, anywhere.
Yeah. And that's what that's why we have a shooting range right next to a park, right next to a medical clinic, and, you know, there's no plan.
and a storage shed that looks
And
like
sto-
shit.
yeah, storage units now, and, so, yeah, I think this is good, I think it's necessary, and
Okay,
if you're doing a non-residential commercial development, I don't think $800 is an unreasonable fee.
well, or two, non-residential is 800, okay. And then residential is 10 or less. Okay, so the fees, you're just explaining what the fees are gonna cover. And then,
Where the breakpoints are.
and then the city council may present a resolution to waive or reduce the.
Just on a highly nitpicky thing. Instead of saying 10 or less and then 25 or less, the second line probably should say 11 to 25.
Okay.
And then 26 or more.
Would we want that second paragraph, may present a resolution to the city council to waive or reduce the I guess that'd be okay.
I didn't see any problem with the verbiage on 143001.
I just wonder if we really want to open it up to that.
Well, the city council ultimately has that authority anyhow. The planning commission can only make recommendations, the council has to adopt an ordinance to put it into law.
Shouldn't it follow the, to appeal it to, like we set up earlier? To the board of adjustment?
Well, this doesn't talk about an appeal, it just says that the
No,
council may present a resolution.
If there's something that we were trying to get done, then, you know,
You're giving them and the city council would be giving them an incentive of sorts.
Yeah, like a tax break or
Like
something.
a tax break.
yeah, you know, Amazon wants to put a distribution center up there, you know, instead of giving them $3 million or $30 million. Wait.
Yeah, I'm sure they're really gonna appreciate that $800 rate cut.
Okay.
I think, I would guess that that section, that paragraph I modified to be city council member was there because this table I copied from was like 3 pages long, and I just picked out these that I thought were appropriate for Holiday Island. It came from Fayetteville, that's where I got it from.
And
So, go ahead.
grading and drainage, then,
Well, I assumed that, leaving that there would, because HICPC would be involved with that in getting the water department or whoever it is, the roads department involved in looking at what people were doing. There might be some expense that the city should reimburse HICPC for. So this helps cover that.
you know, I can see where this would be, you know, as an example, when you drive through Pea Ridge now, they have, between Pea Ridge and Benville, Rogers, there's 2 huge subdivisions going up.
Centerton, I think, is where it's at. In Centerton, the north end of it.
Yeah, they put in, you know, they put in all the sewer and water and everything else. But I can imagine that in clearing that property, that they probably had to do, you know, create some drainage ditches and stuff like that. And all of that dirt work would have been done, you know, prior to actually, clearing the rest of the property and grading it for you know, curb and gutter and stuff like that, so. I don't see a problem with having it in here. I don't know, can't really think of any situation right now with the current land available and how the island where it would come up.
Well, you know, I don't know what authority how it would be administered, that someone would say, yeah, I'm gonna grade this property, and someone says, no, you can't. I mean, do we have that authority now? If someone wants to take off a quarter of a hill so they can build a house down there, can someone say, no, you can't, because you're gonna create a landslide problem below it? Or you're not gonna do anything with that fill dirt you're taking away, you're just gonna push it down the hill? I mean, those kinds of questions.
I'm working on culverts and drainage. That's the main change that I need to make to the building code. It was one very short paragraph, or it is one very short paragraph in the building code as it is right now. That's going to expand to almost a full page. I have not, at this point, dealt with drainage in general, but Mickey Feinfield has been helping me with this. And he said that there is a state regulation right now, and I think he was gonna try to find it for me, that prohibits changing the direction of the flow of water so that it, directs the water onto somebody else's property or something like that. We haven't done anything to directly consider whether or not there'd be an impact of a mudslide or something on somebody's downhill property. That in this Holiday Island, that's probably something we need to consider. And
Keep in mind, look at the excavations going up there in the corner. They've taken out a significant chunk of earth.
Yeah.
And it looks like it went downhill. I don't know if it went down the hill on their property or on the next lot.
I think most of it they tried to keep from going downhill so that they had a flat area to build on.
Okay.
And
It looks totally unsafe to me.
well,
We'll see.
that's one area where I'm gonna again ask Mickey to give me some help in inspecting we're not doing building inspection per se yet, and that building permit was issued by the old planning commission anyway. But I think Mickey and I need to walk down there someday and when they're working on it and just convince ourselves that
Looks great.
those footings and everything are sitting on bedrock and not just sitting on the loose dirt that they scrape down there.
And as we move forward, if somebody does want to put in a subdivision, I mean, that's gonna mean somebody's got to determine how that will impact water system, sewage system.
Yep.
Drainage.
I think that's covered in that whole section on subdivisions that we haven't gotten to
Yeah,
yet.
so
But yeah,
It's like if someone wanted to put a Tyson plant over there on 23 in an area annexed by the city or something, and it would tie into our sewer and water system perhaps. That would be impossible to handle now.
Well, in a previous life, we had a subdivision that the developer that wanted to put in, I don't remember how many houses, 35 or 40, and we determined that unless we did significant improvements to sewage, that it couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a relatively minor thing, but another thing that has to be considered is street addresses. It seems to be a minor thing, but in actuality, it's a very important thing. And, we've kind of lost a little bit of control of that too. I don't know, I can't figure out who assigned the street numbers for the houses that Terry Presley built down
Right.
on the island. Because they're not in Data Scout, and they're not on that list of addresses that the Planning Commission had. I'm assuming that they do have street numbers assigned.
Although, when I looked at that list you gave me from the planning commission, that had street addresses, I don't know if you looked at it. But I would swear I saw some empty lots, I'm looking at my street, and empty lots on my street that had been pre-assigned
Yes.
numbers.
Every
That
lot,
aren't in the
at
county.
one point in time, every lot in Holiday Island had a street number already assigned to it. And,
But you won't find those in the county records, though, right? Doesn't come up when you pull it up in the county record.
interestingly enough, the county assessor called me yesterday and asked me if we had a list of all the street numbers. Because,
They're probably doing their election commission thing. They're probably doing their election commission mailing to tell us what ward we live in.
now this had to do with Carroll Electric.
Oh, okay.
If Carroll Electric gets a request to hook up
Or a new house.
a power at a new address, then Carroll Electric requires somebody to certify that that street address is correct for that property. And she was gonna send me the form and everything, and you know, she really didn't know who was supposed to do that, and I don't either. And I said, I guess I can do it. But the first and foremost, we need a complete up-to-date list. And, you know, way back when, they had all these lots and somebody assigned street numbers to them. And then they replotted this, and, you know, some of those street numbers changed.
Like Woodsdale was all replotted.
Yeah, and now there's parcels with houses being built on them that have street numbers assigned to them. Almost, I bet $100 that nobody has given those street numbers to 911. So if those people, you know, somebody has a heart attack at that house, the 911 emergency responders wouldn't,
So
it would
how
come
did,
up a blank when they plugged that address
how
in.
did those houses on Fairway get the, you know, something
1C,
A, B,
1D.
C, and D and all that as their house number?
Those were assigned by the ones on the other side of the street from Terry Presley. That started out being a mess too, but there is a 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. The houses on the other side of the street are
Those are the ones.
1A, 1B, 1C, 1D.
Yeah. Is that because they ran out of numbers?
Yes,
It's because it was a parcel. It was a parcel and they subdivided it.
And the numbers
the
are
parcel-
across the street.
The parcel was assigned the address of 1 Fairway Drive. So when they divided it up into 4, they couldn't give it 3 Fairway Drive because there was already a 3 Fairway Drive. So they made it 1A, B, C, and D.
So those houses, when people see those houses' address, it makes it look like they're living in an apartment.
It does.
Well, now we know how,
Yeah.
Beaver Drive got numbers that are not in sequence.
Right. Yeah, for Beaver Drive up on the mountain, it was out of sequence when we were on the corner.
It would be nice if it was logical and fit a pattern, but at this point in time, I would just be happy to have an up-to-date table that has every lot with its corresponding street address. So when somebody is gonna build a subdivision, that's gotta be part of the planning process. You know, what are these lots gonna be, what are the streets gonna be called, what's the numbering system for the houses on the streets? Who's gonna coordinate that with
Somebody got to
911?
live in one key drive.
Well, and I assume that is something the city can determine. The city has the right and privilege to determine.
I don't know.
Well,
That's-
something like the
that's
county
what-
thinks you do.
That's what Berryville and Eureka Springs, they have a 911 coordinator, whoever that person is in the city. Someone carries that title.
Well, so are you saying the 911 coordinator decides?
For the
street
city.
numbers?
What I heard from, I think it was Berryville, the 911 coordinator of Berryville coordinates with the county 911 and the county courthouse, and comes up with, and the postal service comes up with an address.
Yeah, somebody told me one time too that, and I don't remember who it was, but somebody told me that the post office assigns the street numbers, but I don't believe that would be the case. I think they need to be involved, although if you want mail delivery, you have to take a card up there that gives them your address. I'm sure there's house numbers assigned to those houses, but there's no record of who came up with the numbering system, and
Can I go back to the grading and drainage permit sentence? Are these fees, this section of the code under this fee page, is that referenced in some part of the text regulations?
It's probably,
Referred to, or something that such and such fee rate must be collected or something?
well, it says in the procedure, before any action shall take place, the applicant shall submit the fee. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, so where's the process that describes that they're going through, that they pay a fee for?
We don't have that in this code.
So we need
It's
it.
probably in that subdivision section.
We need it.
Right.
Well, or in something about grading and draining. That might apply also to just that house on Second. Grading and draining. Or any new house being.
If you're gonna go move dirt, you need a grading and drainage permit to move dirt or rock.
I mean, I'm just suggesting that having a fee without a process that goes with it is probably not gonna work.
yeah, I think, we probably need some kind of we probably need a definition of what constitutes grading and drainage. Because in the building code, it says that if you're gonna build a house, you can clear your lot before you get a building permit. Does that constitute grading and drainage?
If you're gonna change the flow of water, it might.
So what grading is, you're moving soil, you're moving the earth,
Yeah.
make room for something else.
But this is grading and drainage only as it relates to zoning. Right?
Right. That's the purpose for these fees, or zoning fees.
So how does grading and drainage pertain to zone?
That would
Well-
be applicable if you're setting up a new subdivision.
Right. I'm willing to take it out for now, until we have procedure and the definitions and all that.
I'm sure we need it someplace.
Yeah. It can always be added in.
Was it in the Fayetteville zoning regulations?
I didn't look for it specifically.
These might have been fees that pertain to multiple kinds of regulations.
So I said their fee schedule was like 3
I
pages
don't
long.
know, but it's less than half
It
acre.
included everything. It had the building permit fees and everything else.
All the various chapters in the.
Yeah, probably. I'll take it out. I think taking it out now.
But let's keep it in mind.
Okay, for now we're down to the drain.
No,
No.
there's another page 63.
Huh?
Of these fees, there's page 63. We did headlines with zoning. So you get the rezoning, accessory buildings, conditional use permits, home occupations, board of adjustment fees.
This is all okay.
Page 63 is the next fee schedule. The rest
Okay,
of the 1430 fees
Yeah.
schedule.
Okay.
So how would you interpret an accessory dwelling zoning fee? When do I pay that?
Accessory dwelling. Well, I need to remove that. We've decided ADUs are not going to be permitted.
Citing what?
An accessory dwelling unit, in our last conversation, we're not going to permit that.
No mother-in-law houses.
So I need to remove that from that table.
Oh, in other words, I see
Yeah, the
dwelling.
dwelling part of it, I need to take that out.
Yeah, I missed the dwelling part, I was thinking accessory, whole chapter on accessory uses.
Right.
But we did.
Yeah, I'll take out the ADU one.
So let's just take a different one, home occupation
Okay,
which is an acceptable use. They have certain home occupations. Where does it say you have to pay a fee?
we haven't adopted that section yet about home occupations, whether we're gonna charge fees or permits or what. We don't have that yet.
So is that gonna be in a different section of, a different title? Number?
If you wanna do something and it's permissible in the zoning regulations, you wouldn't need a permit for anything.
You
Or a
would need a
fee.
business permit. You would have
Well, if we had a business
out
license,
of your house.
I mean, someday we may have.
I'm just
business
trying to
license.
figure out where in the code getting a permit is explained. So we know where to tie this dollar amount back. And I don't know whether a permit is the same thing as a business license or not.
Okay, we have a definition, home occupation, any occupation or profession carried on by the inhabitants, which is clearly incidental or secondary to the use of the dwelling or dwelling purposes, which does not change the character thereof, which is conducted entirely within the main building, which meets all applicable standards and use limitations as described herein. And then we have the word home occupations occurring again under 14.14.03, residential accessory uses. It doesn't say in that section that we are going to charge a fee.
So are these fees that we pull from Fayetteville? Again?
Most of them are, yes.
So,
Yeah.
Maybe Fayetteville charged a fee, but for a permit, but, Pike didn't. Correct?
Yeah.
But the way I interpret this whole fee schedule thing is, you know, if I need permission to do something, and I come to the planning commission with a request, then there's a fee associated with it. But if it's already allowed in the zoning ordinance, I don't need permission to do it. I don't need a
So you're
permit, I don't need a
You
fee.
need a fee for a conditional use or a variance. Not just anything that's allowed.
If it's allowed only as a conditional use, then you would have to apply for that conditional use permit. But if there's no objection to doing something,
Well,
if it's permitted.
there is a conditional use fee line in here, $100.
We're not talking about building permits here, we're talking about development.
I mean, these do seem to apply to zoning, rezoning. You take out the accessory dwelling and the conditional use permit. But then you get more specific when you get to manufactured home,
Yeah, what?
home occupation and stuff. Maybe those are special add-on fees.
You know, why would you have fee for zoning a manufactured home?
Well, again, home occupation, there's an initial permit fee and a renewal fee, and that sounds like a
Well, that's an
business
occupancy code.
license. Sounds like a business license.
No, it's occupancy code. And I don't know how you would have initial permit and a renewal. I don't know why we would have a planning or zoning permit for a manufactured home. You gotta put a manufactured home someplace where you can.
Well, I think it's listed there because you're not applying to stick build something. So it makes a mechanism for you to collect a fee because you're gonna have to do some work to inspect it. You know, it's not a stick built, it's not a site built house.
Okay,
That's,
but is
You
that
don't
not?
someone's-
need a building permit.
you don't need a building permit, you need a manufactured home unit permit.
Okay, that's really cheap.
Is that not covered in that other,
I don't think you have that in your code.
building code, then? No. Okay, that's what this is.
Yeah, I don't know,
I mean, I'm afraid we're getting apples and oranges again.
well, a lot of these regulations do tie together. But I'm still kind of stuck on the fact that, if what I wanna do is allowed in the zoning ordinances,
Shouldn't have paid.
I don't pay anything. I'm not asking for anything. I don't pay anything.
You never need to go to the planning commission.
Right, never need to go to the planning commission. But if what I wanna do is, requires a variance to the code, I have two options. I can go to the building inspector and request a building permit, and he can reject it, and I can appeal it to the Board of Adjustment. Or I could go directly to the planning commission and say, I know the building inspector is gonna turn me down, so I'd like to talk about this. Can I get a variance to let me do this? And I'm willing to pay a $200 fee or whatever it is to get you to take a look at it for me. And we don't need to have a fee schedule for something that's never gonna happen. Period. Like if somebody comes and says, I wanna talk about putting a manufactured home in unit 8. That's never gonna happen, so, why would, I don't know.
What about the crappy ones we talked about moving in?
Or
I mean, if they're allowed, they move them in, where do we?
you're gonna have to have an occupancy code there.
There's got to be some permit or something to allow them to bring it in.
They still have to have a building permit.
Okay.
To bring, that's what I'm working on. It's not covered in enough detail right now in the building code, but
Well, then this,
I'm working on it. When I'm done, it will be.
well, then this manufactured home stuff here is irrelevant. You're not gonna zone a manufactured home in some place that it's not allowed.
If the plan is to cover manufactured homes in the permitting process and a fee schedule in the building code, I'm okay with taking it out here. I mean, that's appropriate, I think.
Yeah.
Let's remember to put it in the building code.
Right.
Well, I know they currently do that. I mean, if somebody's gonna move a mobile home in here, they go to the planning commission and get a permit.
I think it's totally appropriate that if somebody owns a parcel and they want to develop that parcel, whether it be 2 houses or 20 houses or whatever, it's totally appropriate to require them to apply to the planning commission for approval to do that. And these fees, I think that first, other than concurrent plot that we already talked about taking out, I think that first battery of fees makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
Everything after that, I have a little bit of a problem understanding how we would use that.
Conditional use.
Conditional use permits is going to be a totally separate code somewhere. I don't know exactly where it's gonna fit, but
It's here.
It's right in
It's
here.
in our regs.
We put conditional permitted, not permitted tables, and
But
it's all over here.
the same thing, the manufactured home and home occupation, those don't belong in here either. The last three though.
if somewhere we say that conditional use permit is required. See fee schedule and have that continual conditional use permit be annually renewable. That would be fine to have in here.
I'm looking at 1412. Application, first sentence, an application shall be made by the property owner and filed with the planning commission secretary upon forms prescribed for that purpose, accompanied with the appropriate fee established by the city council to defray processing costs. That's the first sentence in 141203, section A.
So
you have to have a fee.
then under the fee schedule,
That's
where
the
would I
application
find
for
that?
conditional use.
Conditional, where would I find?
It's on page 63, I believe.
Okay, so that's not in appendix 143001.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
But it's extension on page 63. Carries to the next page.
Conditional use.
$100.
I don't have a page 63, I'm looking at an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, that sheet I gave you, it'd be the table underneath of where we were just at.
Oh, there it is. Rezoning,
And part of that conditional use stuff has to do with the notification of the public by posted signs. So we're gonna have some expense on occasion, if not every occasion, to get signs made that we give to the applicant to put on the property, and we have to post to the newspapers. I've been watching the Carroll County News for over a year, looking for planning commission activity from our surrounding communities. This last week is the first time I saw it. There was 2 postings for Eureka Springs and 1 for Green Forest.
Yeah.
First time I've seen them post anything.
Well, that's interesting because the newspaper shows they meet virtually once or twice a
Right.
month or something and have a whole list of things on their agenda.
And the 2 for Eureka Springs were conditional use permits.
So I would suggest under that table then for zoning, an accessory dwelling or rezoning, okay, accessory dwelling, okay, conditional use, okay. I would take the part out about manufactured homes because I'm gonna cover that under the building permits.
Right.
Okay, so
And home occupation comes out too.
yes, I wrote down take out
Why?
accessory dwelling, MHU, and home occupations. Take them off that chart.
Right.
Okay.
And the rest of it's good.
Okay.
Okay. Then down below are supplementary permit fees.
What about the streets and sidewalks?
That's fine. We got any sidewalks.
Is that referred to someplace that?
Not here, but in subdivision stuff, I recall seeing it.
We in here? Okay.
We may have a sidewalk someday.
Have you told me we
But it's and other excavations in public right of way. We may have that quite a bit. If someone wants to cut the street to put in a sewer line.
Well, we're gonna make a fortune, nice at cutting the streets.
Well, these aren't set to make a fortune, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Just basically the recovery of costs.
So supplementary for emergency inspection, there's a fee charged for that for $20. Re-inspection, if they have to come back after they've identified some things. I think it's appropriate. That's why I put it here. It's my recommendation for this. And then the other looks like government ease or speak ease for affordable housing and homeless shelters. We may have someone want to come and develop some property for that, so it's a place to say that we're not going to charge someone for doing that. We don't have any city-owned facilities yet, but there's a statement there. I pondered it some, didn't take it lightly when I pasted it in here. I said I pondered some, but I didn't take it lightly when I pasted them.
The affordable housing part?
Yeah, and the all those supplemental.
What, on the city-owned facilities, do we need to add district in there also?
In my mind, we don't have any interest in what they do as far as charging fees for what they might change. They have to come to the planning commission, but I don't think we should charge them for it. I don't know. What's your thought?
Maybe we should put that in there.
They charged us for the use of the room.
I don't, well, I mean, right now, I mean, they own all the property. I mean, there's the green spaces and all, and,
You could exclude any government, any government or government subdivision property.
I don't know,
But I think it needs to be excluded specifically if we're not going to charge them.
Okay. Rather than entitlement in city-owned facilities, it'd be government facilities, including HICPC.
Or city and government.
Opinion from the Board of Commissioners.
oh, Wendy.
We have a representative here. I think the district should be exempted from fees. However, not exempted from the process. And I'm sitting here thinking that one of these days, the district is going to get ready to do something with the rec center. I'm wondering if they have it in mind to come to the city for a building permit.
They do now.
They should, we have an ordinance.
We're gonna sell a rec center to you,
No.
for a dollar.
Our first city park. I think that.
Okay, I think
Well,
we're okay there then.
but the suggestion was to change city-owned facilities to city and HICPC, or city government and HICPC. Should we do that?
Yeah. I think I remember reading in there somewhere that the city council can waive the fees anyway.
We did for government.
Yeah. If
We
there's
can
a
pass a
hardship,
resolution, that's
like that.
that second sentence right in here.
So I don't see, I mean, whichever way you want to do it, I don't think we want to include.
If we, page 60, 61, the appendix 140702, the residential district lots, yard and height regulations. We're backing up now. We're going into the table 14702.
Okay, we're done with
What
this.
page are you on?
It's on page 60. It's if you're looking at the spreadsheet, Dan, it's
Residential district
I'm
lots.
back on the other thing now.
page 60.
I'm on page
You're on this big long one.
penalty for violations, that's what we're on.
No,
No, 1407.20 appendix.
table.
The table, page 60.
My
Never
only,
mind, I'm,
Page
okay.
60.
my only question is why on unit 1 and unit 3 and 4, the setbacks on, but these figures you got, these setbacks, did you get these all from the covenants?
Okay, the information that's in 140702 for front, side, minimum side, and corner lot side and rear is all from the covenant. I penciled in for discussion the minimum street frontage, so the minimum width of the front of the lot. Those columns are added on my benefit because we talked about probably needing that in our last meeting. So where the fields are with a V in it, I have the covenant, but it's void of that information. Where it's blank, I don't have a covenant.
Okay.
On the minimum easement on the the far right-hand side, those are from the covenants. Maximum height is covenant, and maximum lot coverage is covenant. So the only thing that's on here that's been created by me is a minimum street frontage.
Minimum street frontage is like
Of a lot.
75 feet, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you do with these 30-foot lots out?
We're talking about a new lot proposal. This doesn't change anything that's existing already. It says if you're gonna build a lot, you have to plot it 75 feet for residential in an R1, or 60 feet in an R2. I think it's 50 feet in an R3 at the bottom, somewhere is an R3. There's an R3, I put that at 20 feet, in unit 125.
Did
I
the
just guessed it.
75
Oh, okay, yeah,
feet
that's,
number
it's,
to you, is that from somebody else, some other city, or?
It's from where I used to live, and one of the city was 70 feet, I read, for frontage.
how come?
But, you know, looking at Holiday Island, most lots are fairly wide. And it's what do we want to maintain our community to look like? Do we want it chopped up in a bunch of little lots, or do we want acreage lots? What do we want future development to look like?
Here again, this will come into play when, if and when more of these parcels get
Right.
chopped up into.
What did you put in here for residential that's not units? I don't see that.
Sorry, your question again, what?
You, these minimum dimensions here where you have minimum street frontage,
Yes.
okay, C1, C2.
Oh,
I
that's
don't see
commercial
one
with-
for R1.
The residential is the table 140702. Are you on the right table? 14.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all residential, R1, 2, and 3.
Okay. I don't know which ones they are though. Okay, but they're covered in that, all right.
It says residential lot.
R1 through R1, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
For instance, unit 16 is R1, so the data is there for R1. In unit 3, there is R1 and R2, so there's data for R2.
Okay. Gotcha.
So as we move forward into the future and further define some other zones in these units, then we can build onto the table.
Since these is front total and all these all you listed for the covenants,
Yes.
so we really can't adjust those.
I think we can in the future, but I documented what's in the covenant.
They wouldn't, yeah.
We can change them. If we think that they're wrong for the future, we can certainly change them.
Well, I think 10-foot setback is ridiculous.
Well, in unit 1, that's what they have. They also have that in 3 and 4,
Yeah, I see that.
and 15 feet in 13 and 14.
A minimum of 25 feet is, that's close as you should be able to get to the street. But
Is it
so
25? Is your next door neighbor in the White House on the curve, are they 25 feet from the street? That White House.
he probably got a waiver, I don't know.
Okay, so if we have it tighter than, if it has to be closer to 25, they're gonna have a variance. They're gonna have to come to the commission.
I don't agree with giving the variance, there's a reason that they got 25 feet from the floor. This is not 25 feet from the
Well, there's
road, or even in his backyard.
There's some there on the lower part of Holiday Island Drive. One house, they had the blacktop about just enough to get a length of the car parked
Across the front of their house.
front of the house.
And
And there are two of them like that.
Yeah, I know, but most of that blacktop's on the road right away, because you got the road right of ways that are like 75 feet, and you got 40 feet of asphalt, and then the rest of it's ditches, and they covered in the ditches and asphalt, and the rest are, anyway. Their house is not 25 feet back from the road.
No, not at all.
Anyway.
at this point, I wouldn't mess with the.
Well, I'm
setbacks
saying,
that are
these are
covered.
the covenants, so do anything about it.
The B means
B means it's void in the covenant.
it's not mentioned.
Yeah.
Detail. But, you know, going forward, if we plotted out a residential area, you know, the setback ought to be a minimum of 25, I think. I don't know where that would be covered, Lynn, that was my question. And
We would fill in the number 25 in each for each unit. I'm willing to do that ahead of time. I mean,
well,
that's
it's not relevant because we can't change those covenants.
it isn't, it won't be that we'll be changing the covenant. We're setting the stake of here's how it's going to be from here on out.
Okay. Well,
The other problem that I have, and I saw it in one of the texts, that you can use distance averaging, and you talk about this lot and 6 lots either side of it. So if they're all on average of 9.5 feet, then you can place this house 9.5 feet. You probably want to do that if you want to keep the neighborhood looking right, rather than set this house back 25 feet, and the rest of them are 9.5 feet.
well, but the thing of it is, we can't change anything that's already there.
Right?
So if we're talking about establishing setbacks, that would be for new, you know.
New parcel splits.
Right,
And
where you take us, and then we should be able to do that. So I don't know how you handle that. That was my question, because, for the non-residential, you set these up, and again, they're based on the existing, units. I don't know.
in the non-residential, yeah.
Huh?
In the Cs, yeah, the commercials and the industrial.
Could you just add R1, R2, and R3 there, or no? I guess you could just add it to up here for unplatted areas or some, another line for unplatted.
Well, it's not that they're unplatted. Each unplatted or each parcel is included in a unit. And so we described the setbacks and the offsets
Well, all we
by
need,
unit.
what is our standard going to be for develop, you know, when stuff in pre-platted?
I'm not opposed to putting 25 feet or copying these into the table and build them in right now. I mean, I'm not opposed to doing that. I was just trying to show you what we have.
Yeah, I understand. Okay.
For discussion today, for the first time you've seen it, this is what we have in our covenants.
Right.
What do we want it to look like?
I wouldn't put 25 feet in across the board. There's a reason why some of these units have a 10-foot front setback right now. Because the lots wouldn't be buildable if you made it a 25-foot setback.
I know, but we're talking about where somebody's taking an unplatted or parcel, and they're gonna, you know, you go down on that's not Woodsville, what's, over by the rec center there, those 2 parcels that
Shields.
you know, that Tom had, and he sold it. I think Presley bought them, and he's got them all staked off. So what are they gonna do there? They're gonna set them 10 feet from the road?
They're gonna come to the planning commission with a phase 1 plan, and we're gonna look at it, and
I know, but that's
built.
how they lay those out has to be based on our zoning, and we don't have zoning.
Those parcels you're talking about are located in unit 102.
Okay.
Excuse me, unit 117. Both those are 117. 117 has a setback of 25, 15, 5, 15, and 25.
Okay, so they are in a unit, but we have parcels that are not in units.
Yes, and that's the last part of our discussion. What are we going to do with those?
Are you talking that one unloaded parcel? Because I thought everything else was in a unit.
What he was talking about was the stakes that are in place along Shields and Appaloosa across the street.
That I thought it's 117.
Yeah, those are 117.
But he he was saying,
So
you
they-
said there are parcels that aren't in a unit, and I was
Yes.
questioning.
There's a whole bunch of them.
And I don't know if there's units or not, it's this ground, well, I note on the map, we'll get to it, but on the map I handed out, it's.
Okay,
those
all
are-
right.
Some are units, some are not.
So my only question is, you know, for zoning, we don't have anything definitive for unplatted property.
We don't have anything if it's not in a unit,
That was my.
not yet.
And
When we get a zoning map done, we will.
do we not need that?
We do.
We do.
That's why we're gonna talk about
So
it.
we're working on it.
We hadn't got there yet.
We haven't gotten to it. The unplatted, not in a unit properties are on the agenda to talk about.
If it's an unplotted parcel, but it's in a unit, then it's covered in this table right here.
I got that.
Right, if it's an unplotted parcel that's not in a unit, or if it's in a unit that doesn't have a covenant, then we're gonna talk about that in just a few minutes.
Oh, and then we're gonna add it to the table.
Okay,
We'll see.
all right,
Down,
so
boy, down.
in the study notes,
Hey.
this green I added because I discovered in all my messing around trying to get these tables in, I deleted my footnotes. And so in the footnote, I said, if the field is blank, an empty data field requires plans approval by the city planning commission. So if you're gonna build a unit 201 or 130 or 129, you have to come to us. If it has a V, it requires plans approval by the city planning commission. Both empty data fields and the Y and the V should be supplied by a declaration of reservations provided by the developer owner of any subject property. That's the piece I really want to talk about.
Page or section are you?
It's this note that I added for
On
under appendix 14-7-2. The footnotes got deleted in my messing around,
Okay,
so it's on page 60.
I see
Well,
where,
it's on page 60, that's,
okay,
I haven't seen it.
moving right along.
Right, so I had footnotes down here that disappeared. Okay, talking about the blank fields and the V fields, what are we gonna do about
I
those?
don't have a copy of that, the paragraph that's in green.
In these notes I sent, the study notes for today's meeting, that's it right there. Oh, no, you don't have it, I'm sorry. I did add this to my notes after I distributed it.
Okay.
Okay.
Ken's got it. And he did.
Now they got what?
Okay.
Double secret probation.
I don't have
The one with the green. I can
On
find
my
it.
study notes for the day,
I don't have it. Empty data field require.
you may have downloaded that from the website, because I updated it there.
There you go, that's probably what.
The V requires plan. Okay, so what are we gonna try to do today then?
Well, what I was trying to say is explain what we're gonna do if someone comes to us and there's nothing in the table, that the field has either got a V in it or void or it's blank. That they have to come to the planning commission for approval.
Okay.
And I think that's fine.
The last sentence though was that if it's empty or a V, it shall be supplied by the developer owner. So we're gonna require the developer owner to bring us their covenant.
We're gonna
Otherwise
encourage
it doesn't
somebody to
exist.
break a unit covenant.
Otherwise, it does not exist.
That's the question, is that what we're going to do?
I don't know what else we could do.
Why are
Because
we going
don't have
the
it.
premise was that we're gonna do the best we can to support the covenants. And I don't want to be in the position to say, okay, it's 99999 across the board, and then someone, wait a minute, my covenant says it's 122. You know, to be in violation or contrary to the covenant that we don't have a copy of.
Of course, what would prevent them from going and making up a covenant and
They're
presenting
covered.
it? They own the property, they probably own that whole.
Yeah, we don't want, I'm afraid of exactly that situation. I own this parcel, there's no covenant on it,
I can make
And
up
I wanna-
whatever I want.
I wanna build something right on the street, right on the edge of the street. I'm gonna quick write a covenant, take it over to the county courthouse and file it. And then I'm gonna take that to the city planning commission and say, you can't stop me from doing this because, you know, you're trying to not be in conflict with the covenant. I don't think we should encourage people to write a covenant.
So what is the law? We looked at the law, I know a lot about those state laws versus covenants on lands and what prevails. So if the city it's a chicken and egg. If the city comes before the covenant, can you make that covenant invalid?
Yes, if the covenant is in violation of pre-existing city ordinances, then yes, the covenant would be
Okay,
enforceable.
that's all we need.
Lynn, in all your research, was there any kind of standards that, or these setbacks that you came across?
They were all over the map, based on what they were doing.
But what you said earlier is, if somebody develops or subdivision,
Then we
the
just,
setbacks have got to be uniform. You don't want, one right up on the front.
Yeah, for averaging setbacks,
Yeah,
I read that in some other case, in some other regulations.
if we have
And
to,
that'd be part of the planning process, I think, when I wanted to come and do this, and you look at it, and we've already, because we got the information in advance, all those houses on that street are 12 feet from the road. Setting these back 25 is gonna look odd, so it'd be part of that process of approving it.
if all we're talking about here is undeveloped property, and so they would have to come in with a subdivision lot, and we can establish the setbacks in.
Right.
So I'm,
I think, I would take that paragraph out about
About supplying the decks.
developer supplying a covenant.
All right.
I don't think we should encourage writing unit covenants. I don't think that they serve much purpose going forward.
Okay.
If we're not specifying what the setbacks and everything are, then they come to us with a plan, and if it doesn't make sense, we don't approve it.
and you're not gonna develop covenants for these new areas either.
Yeah, but, I mean, generally speaking, somebody that's developing a parcel is going to want it to be marketable, so I don't think we're gonna do anything that we're gonna have serious heartburn with.
Okay. As far as someone coming to us with a brand new one, in our .4, under 140103, the sentence says, the city intends to develop and adopt ordinances and regulations to support the available declaration reservations pursuant to the Arkansas statutes. And then there'll be a date based on an ordinance that passes. So it's based on that date is what was available. So our defense would be, we didn't have that when we adopted these. That's something new. We're bringing more what you brought to us.
so have we seen, Dan, have you seen something that specifically says that in the case of a new city or parcel becomes part of an incorporated area and has covenants, that covenants went out over the city ordinances?
There's a I haven't seen it, but I've been told that there's a Supreme Court ruling, and it's probably Arkansas State Supreme Court. Maybe not. No, it was a national. I read that somewhere when I was doing research, that it was not in Arkansas. It was a Supreme Court ruling that unit covenants have value, and if the government does something to take away, a right or an authorization that was guaranteed these people in their unit covenant, that constitutes an illegal extraction, an illegal taking of value.
So that was a U.S. Supreme Court or
I don't know.
well, because if it was just a state Supreme Court ruling, that would not set a precedent in Arkansas.
Right.
So I guess what I'm getting at, shouldn't we give a definitive opinion on that?
I can ask Justin.
Yeah, I think we should, because this comes up just about every meeting. You know, we've all seen something somewhere that,
One more question on 1407. So if somebody came in with requesting a permit to build the residence in unit 120, how are they going to establish the setbacks?
They're gonna bring a plan and they're gonna present it to the planning commission. The commission will approve it or disapprove it. And I would think at that point, when we say, if they came to us and say, this needs to be 20 feet for frontage, we would probably update the table. So the rest of the development in 120 would be the same. That'd be my anticipated.
So you're going to make,
The building inspector would
Maybe.
not be able to issue a building permit because he wouldn't have any zoning standards to go by, so that would have to be referred to the planning commission.
Because it's blank, they have to come to the commission for the approval.
and then you're going to use that as a standard for that.
Probably.
Update this table with that
I
standard.
would guess that we would look at the neighboring properties and see what the.
And 208, 208, 209, is that Bluff area? Where the hell is that?
To the park,
They're the commercial areas.
commercial in the park.
They're near that number 3 I put on your handout map. They're in that section that I don't have highlighted. The 200s are. 201 through 217 is a string of properties across the road in the commercial area. 201 through 217.
Okay, and the Bluff's behind that, so what?
The blue part's the bluffs.
That's 301 and 302 that's highlighted in that chart. One's blue, one's green.
Oh, okay, off to the left, okay, I got you. Well, the green is Peachtree.
Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure that we're okay with what I propose for the minimum street frontage. That's my invention in these 2 tables.
I think 75 feet is fine.
And I have 60 feet though in R2.
80-foot lots back in the olden days was pretty standard in a city. So.
Okay. So in R2 is 60 okay? R2 is the the duplexes and multiple family. So a little bit narrower lots. Or should it be just as wide, 75 feet?
If you're putting,
I'd say 75 if you got a duplex.
if you're putting a duplex on one lot, then you want a wider lot.
Well, not necessarily. Duplexes are, well, I'm gonna say typical, but my experience has been they've been smaller homes.
Well, they're usually 4 rooms.
Yeah, so they're smaller homes anyhow.
I know, but if you got 2 of them, you got an 8-room house.
Yeah, which is 2,400 square feet or less, 2,000 square feet. I don't know, I just,
And they're usually on one level, so I don't know.
I don't know.
we can make them 75. And then what about R3? So you've got a string of lots dividing up a
I don't know how-
4-unit townhome. I put that at 20 feet for lot width, minimum. It can be bigger, but I put minimum.
I don't see there's nothing in it.
And again, 60 feet is minimum for a duplex lot.
I thought we just changed it to 75.
We can, we will. I just put it on there because it's minimums.
and then if you got 4 units, you got to have substantial parking.
Right now,
I don't think you can set it because there's, R3 is anything more than 2.
R3 is intended for the townhomes. You got attached residences side by side. Divided up
I
into
don't think you
lots.
said a
I wonder
minimum.
how wide,
I don't
I
think you
wonder
said
how
a
wide the
minimum.
lots are in, like, Oak Point.
I don't think you said a minimum.
They're not very wide. 20 feet being a minimum. That's as tight as we want it. If they want them to be 40 feet or 100 feet, they can be whatever they want, but I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong column. It's 50 feet. I put 50 in there, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
R3.
I was gonna say 20 feet.
It's the,
What's the height?
it's called.
I don't think you can set.
It's only three sheets of plywood wide.
I don't think you can set a minimum on
R3.
You don't know what the hell it.
I said 50 feet in my chart, I'm sorry, not 20 feet.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay,
What do you think you want, but
okay, so we'll leave that alone. All right, now let's go to the zoning map then. So what we're talking about, on marked on these maps I passed out, the first property, unit 18, in the eastern edge of our city limits. I didn't zone it because I don't know what we're going to do as a group, if we need to decide what we're going to do.
Let me hand out something here.
Okay,
Is that one, where you got the one and the two?
yes, sir.
And I had a question mark that, I didn't know what it was.
Those are bullet ones on our text through bullet 8. My discussion points 1 through 8 are the 1 through 8 that's on the
okay.
map.
Unit 18 and 19, you said. Where is that?
That's
Can you see the map?
Flanagan's and Gary Hansen's.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought. That's not that.
There are
40 acres out there.
There are, did you just lay this down there?
I did it before the meeting started.
Oh, okay.
So my
Because I
discussion,
did almost the exact same thing.
my discussion points 1 through 8 are those bullets that I circled.
Yeah. Let me see if,
Bottom right hand corner is 1.
there's a couple more.
Okay.
Where's that 160 acres? Well, that's 4.
There's a, over by, it's where it's, for roisters, just on the Holiday Island side of where roisters live. Out by
Pleasant Ridge
Woodsdale.
Road?
Yeah, Pleasant Ridge Road. There's a property there that's 46 acres.
On Pleasant Ridge? It's not
Yes.
ours?
It's,
No, it's a road
It's
down.
inside the city
When you're-
limits.
when you're coming down Pleasant Ridge Drive down towards Woodsdale, there's like a duplex or something that's along the road. There's just one house along there.
Oh,
That's
I
what
marked
All that land around that duplex is
Oh,
one
I see what you're
parcel.
saying.
And I marked that parcel residential. That's this parcel, right?
Yeah, yeah.
On this map I gave you, it's
Yeah.
this right here.
Yeah.
I marked it as residential because it was surrounded by residential.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. But
These others are the ones I don't know what they're surrounded by.
that one, that one's 46 acres. There's the big parcel C that Flanagan owns is 417 acres.
Is that number 4 on the map?
That's number 4 on your map.
Okay.
Number 3 on your map is actually divided up into 1, 2, 3, 4 different parcels.
Okay.
One of them is 34 acres, one's 10 acres, one's 20 acres, and the fourth one that runs, it's right behind Wolf Wellness, runs along 23, doesn't show up in Data Scout, so who knows what it is.
There's another one going up Pleasant.
And then Gary Hansen's property, which is unit 19, I think, is 48 acres.
I think Flanagan's 19, didn't you?
Well, one of them's 18,
Gary's
one's
18.
19. So Gary Hansen's is 48 acres. Flanagan's is 12 acres. Those I kind of picked those out separate because they're on the outer periphery of Holiday Island. They're primarily wooded. Most of them, only Flanagan's and Gary Hansen's have any kind of buildings on them. Gary Hansen actually lives on his, he's got a house there. I don't think,
He
Chris
doesn't have
Flanagan
septic.
lives on Holiday Island Drive.
Yes.
So I think he's got a barn and some animals and stuff out on his property.
I thought we sold that.
There's a big,
The one that has the garden next to it.
Maybe, or it could be, I don't know, but at any rate, all of those properties to me seemed like they may need another classification. So I came up with this, a zone that I call rural wooded. And the definition would be a parcel with a minimum acreage of 10 acres that is primarily undeveloped woodlands. The primary usage would be timber, hunting, single-family residence, or hobby farming. No commercial uses allowed. Multiple housing units on the parcel would be prohibited, and a well and septic would be allowed. And
Is that what's on Hanson's property, or it's not connected to ice and water?
I think he might have water, but not sewer. I think they did run water into his property, but I'm not 100%.
I don't think so, I think he's, well,
Could be, I don't know.
I don't know, we went through, there's another 160 acres in there that we had all kinds of disputes over property lines on a long time ago. But there is another, as you go up Pleasant Ridge, and you make that sharp left, you know, where that house is up. The plumber built there. There's a parcel back in there, because I was 25 acres there, I was gonna buy it one time. It's behind Woodview, or, I'm trying to pick it out here, where's the fire station at?
the fire station is, if you look at that little green box, I believe that's the barn. Fire station is probably to the east of that. I'm thinking, I did not dig in Data Scout to see what that green box represents. I marked that as HICPC commercial, assumed it was the barn.
You talking
in
about
the
the
Circle
property
6.
directly south of the fire station? That's not in Holiday Island.
No, you know where that, you go up there, you know, where they got the guardrail there, so.
On Pleasant Ridge by Roysters.
Yeah, there used to be, there was a dirt road that went back right there at the turn. Then it went back, and there's acreage in there, because I was gonna buy it one time.
Oh, the main fire
It's
station.
not the one, it's not connected to the one behind, right behind the fire station, but there's another plot in there.
Are you talking about where Roxanne lives?
Oh, that's on Data Scout, that's HICPC property. I know what you're talking about. It's this square right here.
Where, I don't see it.
Below the 9 that I wrote in.
Yeah,
I don't see what's where you're
that's
talking
fine,
about.
that looks like.
I marked it residential because it was, I think residential.
Behind the little.
I handwrote a 9 in there. What Dan was pointing to
I think
was
it's,
that,
I think
was
it's
this
right here.
rectangle. This rectangle right here is what Dan was pointing
Yeah.
to.
That,
Right here.
in Data Scout, that belongs to HICPC.
Really? Well, it belonged to an individual, and I was gonna buy it at one time. Okay.
It's either green space or was in foreclosure.
It may have been foreclosed on, and went back to the district because they couldn't sell it. I mean, there's not a flat plate in there.
Yeah.
Straight down.
Okay.
So a lot of this is my 1 AM, 2 AM, 3 AM effort to get it done, so we have something to look at. I acknowledge that most of it needs to be verified that we've got it, that I have it marked right.
Okay, and the light blue is unit 1 trailers, right?
Yes,
And what's those green spaces? Is that the depot? Does that belong to HICPC?
those are our 2 areas.
Yeah, back in there?
I don't know where you're pointing, Ken.
Huh?
They're giving a reference point.
To the left of the unit one, right here. These two big green spaces.
Yeah, those are our two zones, according to the covenants.
Really?
Yes, sir. Duplexes,
Really? But the,
just like the green zone along Holiday Island Drive.
well, all the green behind HICPC is R2s and too, huh?
Yeah, up there on that curve it is.
Well, there's a whole
This would be a whole lot easier to talk about as a group if I had it up on the screen and had a great big screen with a big display. This is a huge map. There's 3 miles represented on a piece of paper. I wanted to talk about those zones that Dan says that we probably need a new zone for. I'm not opposed to doing that.
I'm not opposed to doing the.
Well, I've got one question. That's a lot of acreage, and, I mean, conceivably could, down the road, far in the future, would there be, you know, a hotel one developed, since this was a resort town, or some industry looks for acreage, and we limited it, I mean, I don't know how many hundred acres there.
By zoning it, we're saying it's gonna be RW. If you'd like to have some other use, you have to come to the planning commission with a plan. And we can, they would be rezoned, or we would give some conditional use permit or something like that. But we need to assign a zone to it because it's inside our city limits.
Well, there, you got that white area, number 5 is.
That happens to be the one church that I didn't mark. So I want to talk about churches as a group, as a whole, what zone do churches belong in? Are they R1s like their surrounding neighborhood? Or are they C1 like commercial? What are we gonna call church grounds?
C2, isn't it? Our definition of C2 was, I think churches was in, I don't have that to look at, but we had, you know, we defined what was in C2 as light commercial.
I'm trying to get to it.
I don't know that there would be, to my way of thinking, I don't know that there would be a zone for churches. I think the church would be zoned whatever it resides inside of. As an example, you know, the community church is in a residential area, it should be R1. Faith Bible Church or whatever, if it's still in existence, that was up in the park, it was in commercial property, that should be zoned commercial.
Okay.
What?
That's kind of where I was leaning, but I just.
What's C2? Tell me what C2, I think it fits the definition of C2.
Not quite,
I was thinking we had allowed in one of the R's.
yes,
Churches.
we do. That's what I thought too. That's, like Dan said, if it's sitting in the middle of a residential R1 zone, just mark it R1. I'm not opposed to that. I just want to be sure that's.
Well, all the churches are in residential.
Well, except for like the one church is up in the commercial area, in that strip area.
Which one? It ain't there anymore.
I know, but they were.
And they could be again.
Why is this one unique?
I just left it blank so that it would be a discussion
Oh, you
point.
did, okay.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Okay.
That,
What are those pink areas up there in, I don't know what unit that is, where the green ones are there?
Those are C1s.
C1? They put all that, I know on State Line Drive there where the community, across from the community church, that's a commercial zone. Is that what that is there?
In the covenants, those are marked C1 lots. So what I'd encourage you to do is download the PDF that I emailed to you, open it up and hit the plus until it blows up big enough you can see it.
Well, I did download it, I didn't.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't realize.
It'll expand on your screen.
Okay.
Ken, just as a follow-up on that property, I got Data Scout over here. That property was owned by Holiday Island Development Corporation up until 2007, and now it's out HICPC. So it could have been dedicated to HICPC by Tom, or it could have went into foreclosure. I don't know. But if it went into foreclosure, the district needs to get that acreage and put it into green space. Mr. Commissioner?
Should we not, on this map, should we not show green space, or?
I haven't done that yet, but yes.
I mean, because.
We have a zone for that, and I haven't got that done yet.
Oh, okay.
Our definition for R1, the last sentence, the purpose of this district is to accommodate single-family residential uses with one residence per lot supporting religious, recreational, and institutional uses. So it's no problem marking it R1. They're surrounded that way, so I'll do that for the church areas.
The biggest problem is when the
Whatever they're
developers
sitting in.
put this in, they didn't put any areas where you could build churches, schools, libraries, or anything. I mean, all they did was see how many damn lots they could lay out.
Did, now, I got to chasing a rabbit here with that HICPC property. Did we decide on any, on my rural wooded designation for
I like it.
some of these?
We're just gonna call 1, 2, 3, 4, that's what those are.
Well, Dan, I'm okay with rural wooded on everything except for the zone 3 that I have marked on the map. I don't think that's rural wooded. It looks to me like it's all been cleared, it's all been leveled.
Where was that?
In the south end of town, south of the park, south of the 300s. Maybe it is wooded back there. I don't know how far that line
I
goes.
don't know how far.
When you get behind,
The streets and
the lots that are on the street,
okay,
it's,
Go straight
okay,
down.
all right,
That's why they call it the bluffs.
okay.
yeah.
We're just gonna call 1,
And
2,
the
4.
view back there is really pretty fantastic.
Dan suggests we can call it rural wooded, RW.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Well, I'm gonna make them all the same. They're all
That's
gonna
what I
be the
mean,
same.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
You just call them Dan's Woods.
1, 2, 3, and 4 be RW. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I'll put the text in the document to support that.
4. Yeah, those are the main ones.
Okay, we covered 5 for churches. How about number 6? What do we do with that property? Where are we gonna zone that?
Number 6. Residential,
Current Tom D's property,
R1.
okay?
R1, and if somebody wants to buy it and do something different, they can make a proposal.
Okay,
Table Rock Landing is R3.
the 7 is,
R3.
We're not talking about Table Rock Landing.
no, that's number 7.
We're talking about the ranch house.
No, I'm talking about number 7, Table Rock Landing.
Number 7 is next on the list, so Table Rock Landing is, as far as I know, there's only one privately owned property in there, and the rest of it's all rentals. So what do we zone it?
R3?
I thought it was commercial.
Yes.
Yeah, it is commercial.
Okay, so which commercial is it?
One.
Medium, C2? Okay. Because the C3 and 4 were the bigger stuff. Okay. And then, how about Oak Landing, number 8? I haven't done my data scout work to find out, are those townhomes or are they
Oh, Oak Point, you mean?
Oak Point, right?
Oak Point, they're called Oak Point condominiums, but I think they meet the technical definition of townhomes.
So it'll be R3. Okay. And then number 9, what did I describe that to be?
I don't have a number.
Excuse me, I marked a 9 on my map, but what did I do that?
No.
Oh, what am I gonna do with, the golf courses? 9 was my golf courses.
I see.
I know, but do we call them green spaces or do we And it's C1 then?
They're government.
Yeah, they're government, but their commercial enterprise is C1, right? Because they're neighborhood type commercials surrounded by homes. And it's not just the golf courses, it's the rec center and the.
Why did we?
If they were owned by the city, would you call it commercial, or would you call it a park?
If it's owned by the city, it'd be city property.
I mean,
Well,
It should be zoned city property.
that's what it should be zoned, because HICPC is,
I would call some stuff city property.
We have two HICPC properties. We have HICPC green space and HICPC commercial.
I would call it green space.
That's why it's here for discussion.
Well,
it's
I
not-
don't know why. Give me some reasons
Hyacinth
to go
were
one
to have-
way or another.
Because I have to put a color on the map.
if HICPC would, like some people are saying, sell them out to a lessee,
Don't go there.
Really commercial.
or, the argument during the rumor during the incorporation was that, putting sheep and pigs on
In tiny homes.
It's
or
already.
tiny homes is more realistic than pigs. And, I mean, I wouldn't know.
answer your phone right there.
Well, let's make it so they have to come to the planning commission to do it. What should it be?
what's green space, what's zoning?
The intent for green space were these parcels that are out there
Yeah,
under power lines and.
yeah, I mean, but under the C1, C2, R1, R,
Do we
What
have?
do we
C1 is neighborhood commercial, so it's small stuff that looks like houses and homes. C2 is the small
but
enterprises.
what designation were we gonna give green space?
Yeah,
HG,
H.
HICPC green,
That's what I do for
for the horse golf courses.
all of high school.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Including
Because when we shut the golf courses
Would that
down,
have
Including the rec
any-
center?
Would that have implications
we have sheep hunting.
in some way down the road versus naming it HICPC commercial? I'm just trying to think.
I mean, we have that discussion
Why
a lot.
choose one designation versus the other?
Can we just somewhere in there put that, for purposes of zoning, HICPC is considered a government?
I think it is.
That's why we created two separate zones. Recognize that they exist, that they own property. We put it in there so that if they decide to change their use, they have to come to the planning commission to get permission because it's inside the city limits. It's another reason we zone it.
Kind of, there's something inside of me that just says we need to have one classification for all HICPC property, and maybe HICPC green space is not the right one. Maybe it should just be HP, HICPC property.
I don't see the sewage plant area down here either.
Well, my point was if we're creating differential codes, we have to need a reason.
It's because it's quasi-governmental.
I mean, dividing HICPC into multiple.
Yeah, I'm thinking we don't want to divide HICPC into multiple classifications.
Would there,
It doesn't.
can anyone think of a reason why we need multiple classifications?
I was looking at the way they're used, that we have the rec center, it's an enterprise, they conduct business out there, money is exchanged. Same thing in the clubhouse. You've got wherever money is exchanged, it's commercial.
So would we put separate, different restrictions, or would we create separate restrictions ourselves?
By zoning it and defining what it's used for, allows us to have some input into its future use.
No, that's residential blue.
That's a house right there.
So,
Yeah, but in district lands all right over here.
Ken, I didn't separate any district stuff out yet. I just drew the big areas to get some paint on the picture.
I like the idea, you know, HICPC green and HICPC commercial. And then because, you know, the green space could turn into something else. And the commercial, or, where the sewage plant and all that is, you got.
So you're thinking the green space, if you make a separate classification for green space, at least we could have an opportunity to keep it green.
Right.
That makes sense.
Not, really limited development on that.
That would be a reason to differentiate.
See
Um,
that?
But I mean, the property, they got lift stations, and they got stuff all over the place. You got water towers, like up by my house, you get that round area inside a Rocky Top Circle. Half of it is a residential lot, and the other half is the water tower.
Right.
And
And I need to put that distinction on the map.
And I'd say, what is there, 26 lift stations all over? And then you got the depot area up there by you got 4 or 5, you got 4 fire stations, and then there's a big acreage back there. They call it the depot or something, or is it junkyard? Back behind Venus.
Oh, up there.
There's like 20, 30 acres back in there.
And we have water tower property on Quail Run. Those are the finer details I gotta get on the map.
Well, I know, but those would be, commercial.
I was gonna mark it commercial.
There's some
Because
area
they're not
over
green
there
space.
off of Rancho Vista, too. There's an area over off of Rancho Vista.
But then, you have to have them shown as something so you can get a starting point.
Yeah. And I think our text is strong enough to say this map is a reference. The control is the attached table. That's why we need that lot and parcel list. So we can put the right designations on this list, so you can go down and you can read it. What is it?
I can put street addresses on it now.
Okay.
For that in file.
Okay.
Not a lot.
So the table will be the controlling document. This is a reference. So if I miss a lift station or two, putting some purple on it, it's gonna be okay.
I was dumbfounded when I asked Doug Taylor about that farm they built at the firing range. Well, that's commercial, they put in there whatever they want. That ain't true.
Now, in thinking about the table, and it being based upon the plot maps, all that, and how those lots back up to each other, in certain neighborhoods, you got this one with frontage on this street, this with frontage on this street, they back up to each other. And the sewer lines go along the
Common property line?
back property line,
Okay.
and that's considered green space. But
Well, it's an easement.
they're basically just easements.
They're just easements, yeah.
So we'll never really be calling that.
I wouldn't think so.
And I don't guess we'd ever be building trails on that area, those type of areas either, right?
That's typically where they put them, is between lots.
Yeah, but
But we probably wouldn't.
you built trails up there around Bobcat and stuff. Did you build trails on people's property lines?
Not intentionally.
Did you ever look at that to see what you were building it on?
I mean, we didn't survey it, but we tried to stay
I don't know.
Because I mean,
Way
if they
back
were-
from-
If they were abutting properties, they would be sharing a property line that you might be going over.
Yeah, we, you know, we didn't, like I said, we didn't get it surveyed, but we stayed well back of what could have reasonably been expected to be the backside of any lot.
I think we're about ready to put this thing to press, aren't we, man?
Well, you guys gave me a whole bunch to do with creating new, whatever, and anyway, yeah, this is less work to do than what I had last time we were done. I was panicking when you said you wanted to get this ready for today.
I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time worrying about, you know, creating a detailed map of all HICID property. You know, I think that can be
The table will
tabled,
have.
The table will be,
everything.
yeah,
okay,
I agree, don't.
because, I mean, there's little scripts and bits and pieces all over the place.
And nobody's gonna be able to see it anyway, if you're looking on a computer screen hardly, or unless you.
No, you can, you can
Blow it up.
You can blow
Blow
it
it
up,
up
but
pretty big,
yeah,
but,
you can fill a whole screen with the letter A
yeah.
on the PDF, the detail goes away, but I can make that more detailed so you can go bigger. But the point I made with this was, you know, illustrating, is the color code gonna work, are you gonna be able to
I like
use
it.
this? We can publish this, the public will have something to reference. We're required to create a map, it doesn't say how detailed it has to be, so I think it meets the requirement of the
And I think
standard.
if people really wanted the detail, they probably would have been to look at a specific piece of property and see if it was R1 or R2 or C1.
I mean, I've only got a 13-inch screen here, and you can see, I mean, you got a.
Yeah, the little plots are underneath it, you can actually see those. the
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah, you can blow it.
Yeah, I made them transparent so they would show through. And then on this map, that's the unit boundary. When I put the, just the zone boundary, the lines are a lot thinner. So those bigger lines. And I see on your map, you went ahead and put your unit numbers.
Well, I did.
Would that
just
be
for my own
helpful
purpose.
if I put the unit number on this map?
Yeah, would be for me, if it's not.
You know, when it's unit because we have it. When I looked at other zoning maps, they just have big areas that are pink and blue and purple and whatever.
Well, units mean a lot out here.
That big blue area just behind unit 1, that's unit 2, right?
The light blue is unit 1.
And the darker blue,
But
south of it is 2.
two.
It gets a little difficult when you get down to the island because there's so many
Yeah.
units.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this size map, you know, when I started putting numbers on it, they had to draw extension lines.
Yeah.
And this is the 2012 version that's up on the wall that I printed 4 pages by 4 pages. And I can get this map printed this big, I'm not gonna do it like this, but we can pay for it, it costs like $5. We're all done. This is what my wife and I did with a couple hours with on my preliminary stuff back a year ago, you guys, a year ago. And there's parcels that have been subdivided since this is drawn that are listed in the covenant, and there's others that aren't on here at all. These covenants were drafted after this map was done.
Well, since none of the other municipalities even have a map,
Yeah, they're not maintaining them.
so we're ahead of the game.
Okay.
Got one last comment on green space.
Okay.
You know, HICID would probably want to have an opinion on what should be called green space and what shouldn't be called green space. You know, green space is kind of a imaginary thing that we've created in our own minds here, but I'm not aware of any deed restriction or anything that when that property was deeded to the district or gifted to the district, I'm not aware of any deed restriction that says that it has to be green space and can never be developed or anything.
Well, if you read the unit, one that says parks in a table, if you read that, it says it's a park until you don't want it to be a park, and then it's mine again. That's what the covenant says. The park unit. So I wonder why Dees doesn't own that today.
What's the park unit?
It's up there in the commercial area where the Veterans Park
Oh,
is.
better, you talking?
It says that's a park,
The
it will always be a park, and when it's not a park, it's mine. You give it back to me. That's my paraphrase of what the covenant says. But it's not a park anymore, you cut it up. Part of it's a gun shop.
There was a furniture manufacturer before a gun shop.
Well,
Are you specifically talking about
That
the
unit-
unit for the Veterans Park?
Yes, that unit was called a park.
Okay.
And it says it'll stay a park, and when you don't want to be a park anymore, I get it back.
I wonder if you have the most recent copy of the covenant, because it seems to me that he redid the covenant for that, you know, the day he sold the property, so that it,
I just wish it had been a city then, they bought it.
which is the problem with covenants, you know, if you own the whole parcel, and, you know, you can rewrite the covenant to be anything you want to be.
I think that's why it's incumbent for us to get some kind of informed opinion on covenants versus what the city can do.
Okay.
I think if the covenant comes after the fact, I think we're on strong ground, but if I'll have to get an opinion on if the covenant came first. And in fact, I asked that very question a long time ago of Justin, and we never got around to discussing it. But I asked him if, you know, if the city allows something to happen, there's things in the covenant that the city by law can't prohibit. So if the city permits something to happen, that's in violation of the covenant, is the city in any kind of legal jeopardy because they gave somebody permission to violate the covenant? And we never got to the point of discussing that.
I wish we would.
Yeah, I gotta talk to Justin now.
Not sure about that.
Okay, so the question was asked, are we close to wrapping this up? I can put the notes in for the things we changed today. At one point, we said this needs a legal review. Do we need to do that, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So when I get it all drafted and think we got it zipped up, and I send you that copy, and you'll forward it to Justin.
Forward it to Justin to
Okay.
look at least.
And then I thought I'd probably draft a resolution for the planning commission to adopt it, to recommend it to the city council. I can draft that ordinance. And I would think that we could move forward with that as long as we don't rush it and let the 90-day thing, you know, once a month or 3 months, we read it again or whatever we do. And that way, that would allow time for a legal change. We could change the text in between time, but we can get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to have his opinion before we start it.
So we could, the resolution would come at our regular planning.
Well, I was gonna suggest if I get this done, that we might have another special meeting an hour before our city council meeting next week. And pass a resolution to adopt it, recommend it to the city council.
Are we that far into the month?
Next week?
Yeah, next week is city council. It is next week, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be a plan that I get it that far then.
And then we'll pass the ordinance with 3 readings and.
Well, pass the first reading, that'd be anticipated the city council would have a first reading on it.
Right.
The attorney could be reviewing it during that 90-day period.
Yeah, so that, yeah.
Because the concern that we had and we expressed the last time, we've got to make sure the public knows we're doing this. And so I was gonna ask, should we do more? Can we do some advertising, if you will, on social media? Go read this dang thing. We want your feedback. We expect your feedback. Or just do the regular, we're gonna have a meeting to adopt it. I'm disappointed we don't have the participation.
Well, so far, the only participation we've gotten is negative, so I don't.
Well,
Not on this.
Huh?
Not on this.
On anything that I've been, whether we've had anybody come to the meeting before.
the ones that should be interested in this are the builders. You know, the property owners,
Well, they might be interested in what goes up next door to them.
I think we got a suggestion from the audience.
Yeah, so I do have a question, because we purchased our home in September. We paid a lot of money for it. And now I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at right below my house is multiple family units. And that's the case for that whole section of Table Rock Drive. These homes are expensive. And now I find out that in my backyard could be multiple family units. And we were told, well, there's this green space, but green space isn't that big. You're saying it's basically an easement. And so that's a concern for me, that I didn't think that I was buying a home that was going to have multiple family units right behind me. So, yeah, I think there should be some discussion about that.
I don't know where are you?
Okay, I'm lots 12 and 13, right here, 12 and 13 on Table Rock Drive. So I've got this little easement here, which apparently isn't as big. You know, the real estate agent's like, oh, you've got all this space, but we don't where we are. And so 33 and 34, we've actually been looking at those, trying to find out who owns them. And now I find out that those could be multiple family units right there.
Well, there's a lot of,
Behind me, yeah, and that, so maybe for these people down here, it's not such a big deal because they've got quite a bit of green area. But for us right here, yeah, that's a problem.
Are those-
For me,
those-
because I didn't know that when we bought that place.
Are those lots that are behind you that you're looking at down there, do they front
No,
on
they're in
Woodsdale?
your green space,
I
they're
know,
in your,
but do they front on
your multiple
Woodsdale?
family units.
well, that's what all that's, the
Yeah, so
covenants
this
for
is-
those areas there.
Yeah, so this is all multi-family units here, according to this, according to this.
Did you say you're on lots
Okay,
12 and 13 on the corner?
Here it is right
Yeah.
here.
And she's close to the corner
Hillside, right?
Okay,
In
so this is
actuality.
Table
No,
Rock,
she's on
Table Rock.
and this
I'm on the
is,
wrong road,
Lakeview, yeah, Lakeview.
Dogwood, yeah, there's some bad areas in here. You know.
Yeah, those, townhomes
We'll get
or
them cleaned up.
condos
Yeah,
or whatever up
but
there,
if
they're
it's
really in
gonna
bad
be
shape.
multiple family units through
You
here,
can't see them,
that,
they're.
yeah, but that really is gonna affect us, because that's not that much space.
I mean,
What's your lot number?
12 and 13.
it's gonna be straight downhill there, I don't think you got anything to worry about.
And you can't see these, all these,
You can't see them.
She's got.
I don't think you're gonna build the whole house.
you can't see those
Okay,
in
but
your.
I'm right here. I'm right
You
here.
can't see those.
So we're in this section that is really close to those units. We've walked down there, we walked down there to see how far it was.
But isn't that's a pretty good drop off there.
I don't think there's anything in there that's more than duplexes.
No,
You don't think they would be able to build there?
we have.
But we're trying to find out what's open, see if we can buy it. Solve that problem. But, yeah, but we.
There's a lot of vacant lots in there.
Yeah, they're all vacant right now.
Right
Well, I think there's something maybe wrong.
And we're not changing what already was.
Yeah, but see, we weren't told that when we bought the house.
Yeah.
I don't think you got a problem, I think your
So is
elevation,
this guy buying a building on 1 or 2 out there?
and
Actually,
I know,
just.
I know.
Okay, I know what can happen,
This
all
would
right,
be.
because I've been there.
We are in the process of trying to make sure, right now, there's some areas back there, I wouldn't go, I went in there getting signatures for incorporation.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some scary damn people in there.
Well, I've had several.
But there's, yeah,
But we'll get it. I mean, it's gonna, Take a while. to
But as
clean
far
up.
as having input from the community, I think, you know, like the guy 2 doors up just bought that house. And I'm sure that he doesn't know.
We can't, you know, those are, that's the way the covenants are set up for that area. I guess it's just duplexes are not allowed anywhere, or are two.
Well, and you can't, I can't tell if that's R2 or
You could access.
I think it's probably R2.
R2, so that's just
Or
two houses.
the zoning map, you could access.
It doesn't, it just,
Here we are right there.
it's
Yeah,
R2.
yeah, yeah.
Green Meadow, those are all,
R2.
you know, residential too.
Oh, okay, so on that, you can see a differentiation in color.
Yes.
Okay. on
This is R3 here, the dark.
Okay, so around Lakeview is R2, so that would be like duplex.
Duplex.
Okay, well, that would be fair.
And
They have to come and get a building permit, and you heard us talk about earlier,
Better than
that, you know,
this dogwood is where they got one of the problems.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've got the instance of, we referenced it earlier, this house up here where they excavated all down. You know, if somebody tried to do that, they would have to come and get a building.
Well, at least I
permit.
know, knowing.
And Sharon, I've zoned those the way the covenants are. It isn't something that we made different than what they were already zoned.
I don't know.
I'm saying that's what I
I'm
did.
just saying, because, you know, when you buy a house, you are kind of relying on real estate
Trust
to
them,
tell
yeah.
you, and, oh, there's all this green space, well, yeah, in most of that area there is, but not in our house.
Yeah.
We don't have that much where we are, so,
The,
so we didn't know that, but.
I think there's pretty good, I think there's quite a bit of down right in there, that's just not gonna be a problem.
Yeah, well, we've walked down there, it's not that bad.
My first,
All right, thank you.
I think,
Thank you for listening.
I think a lot of I don't think you're gonna see many multi-units built anymore. I don't think anybody's building things like this.
Well,
They
I'm
want-
hoping the economy is
I mean, tomorrow we're gonna work on the
I
sanitation.
can tell you who owns those lots on, Lakeview, if
You probably can buy them for $500.
Karen and Todd Rogers own one of them,
32 and 33.
somebody
I'm
named
actually looking at, yeah, 33 and 34.
Yethron LLC
33,
owns 3 or more of them.
yeah, 32 and 33 are the ones that
That's what, I paid $26,000 for my next door lot, just so I don't have anybody.
Somebody
You're
called
a land baron.
YTHRONM LLC
I got this along.
owns that
I told
one.
him, the guy bought it.
Karen
and I
and
said,
Todd
well, if you
Rogers.
decide not to buy their, build there, let me know, and got the next month.
Sharon,
he
you
said,
know how
oh,
to
we
find
bought
that
a lot
data
down
on the Carroll County website?
I'm sorry, say
Way
Do
that.
you know
over
how to
on
find those, that
Deer Run.
information on the Carroll County website?
And I asked, he
Carroll
said,
County,
I'm
Arkansas,
he asked for it.
They're not too much right there.
and then you'll find a button on there for real estate property, where it's in the bottom of the screen. And then the screen will come up where you can put in like your last name. And then I'll do a little icon next to the listing, a map. You pop that open, and then make the selection bigger on the screen, and you'll see the lot number below.
Okay,
And it'll give you an idea of how to find that lot in the database.
These two.
We have we're paying for a service, so we can click it and pick it back up, but
Yeah.
an individual, we have to do it for digging.
yeah,
That's how
okay,
you find out the
okay,
information.
all right, thank you.
Get mailing address, whole nine yards.
Oh,
Public
great,
record.
awesome, okay, great, we'll do that, thank you very much.
Yeah, the lot right on the end of the cul-de-sac, those people bought it in 2006 for $6,000.
For how much?
$6,000.
Okay.
See about the one right next
You
to it.
said Jack's working on it.
The one right next to it was
I mean, it shouldn't be, it's not rocket science, because
Just-
we've been doing it for all the other cities up for years.
well, it's,
All they gotta
the
do-
one right next to it, those were picked up by this Wythron LLC.
Yeah,
Picked them up from the State Commissioner of Lands. They have a limited warranty deed on the property from 4/2/2021. So those
Contact
lots
them, they'll
were,
sell them cheap, probably.
those lots were in foreclosure, and they picked them up from the State Commissioner of Lands, so they probably part with them
Probably
pretty
anxious to
reasonable.
sell them.
Either that or you wait till the district forecloses on them by
Well, they already had them.
when they don't pay their assessment.
Yeah, the
When
district,
were those deeds?
district foreclosed on them the first time in 2012.
When did that LLC buy them?
Sharon, and down in
In,
the table, on
March,
the tax
April of
assessment on that
2021.
record, it'll show you what those
10
properties
months
were
ago.
They
purchased
won't
at,
be foreclosed for a year.
what
or
they
two.
paid for
No.
when they took ownership.
okay, thank you.
But they probably picked them up for $50 a piece, so, you know,
Exactly.
offer them
Yeah.
$2,000, and I think you got some lots.
You might
That's
get it.
right.
Yeah, yeah, okay, thank you very much, I appreciate your help.
You're welcome.
Don't act too interested though.
Yeah. Just say you know somebody that might take them off their
So
hands.
how does that work? If they pay 50 for that, do they have to pay the back taxes to catch up?
That's when it gets muddy. They,
They have to pay the.
they get a limited warranty deed from the state,
They have to pay the back
and,
taxes.
and that would imply that they're, if they want a clear title to the lot, they have to pay the back taxes and a fee to the district. But if they can find an unsuspecting person to buy it in the meantime, then they pass that responsibility on to the person
All they have to
that
do
wants
is
the clear
issue a
title.
quitclaim.
Nobody will pay the taxes on it until somebody ends
Well,
up
I mean,
with it.
I think you found that, last year, the last 16 months or something, 600 lots have been.
There used to be about 1,500 lots on the State Commissioner of
They're
Land.
probably down to
hardly
100
any
or
now.
less now.
Yeah, there's hardly any.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are people on Facebook from, I don't know, somewhere that are offering all these lots.
There's a guy named Ricky Phillips that
Oh,
lives
he owns a
in
bunch of them.
Helena or West Helena, Arkansas, that's got 96 lots out here right now.
Well, all
You know
this,
darn well, he isn't gonna pay the taxes and assessments on that.
all this does is make it more pertinent that we get this done. Because the longer these guys run unimpeded by rules and regulations, the worse they're gonna get.
Well, as soon as the foreclosures start flowing into HICPC, they're gonna have to have a meeting with the State Commissioner of Lands and the county and come up with a solution to this.
But they generally wait a year before they foreclose after the taxes, the HICID stuff is due. You know, so if it was due in October last year, they won't even start this until 2023.
And then
Do we got anybody on Zoom?
There's a look back period on that too, that the people that owed the back taxes
Wes
on
and
it have
Mark Coon,
a certain number of years to
We
pay
need-
taxes and claim the lot back again.
We're all Commissioner,
The agenda, should we,
Chairman.
Yeah, I can adjourn the meeting.
No,
here.
we can't.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Got you back to the agenda.
We've done the public comments, we've done the commissioner comments, we need to do scheduling.
Scheduling.
Do we need a special meeting next week before the city council meeting?
Let's go ahead and schedule it, and if we don't need it, we can always cancel it.
1 hour before?
Yeah.
Okay, 5 PM.
5 PM,
So what's that date?
an hour before the
15th.
council meeting?
Yeah.
right?
15th,
A week from tomorrow would be the 15th.
and the regular meeting,
This is the regular meeting.
this is the regular meeting, okay.
So a special meeting, February 15th.
Well, you gotta get the
We
March
on the
meeting.
second Tuesday? I thought it was the third Tuesday.
It is the third Tuesday. Our meetings, Our meeting's.
That's not
This is already the second.
This is the second Tuesday.
That's the third Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's what we always meet.
This is the second Tuesday already.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's next week.
So,
So when's the regular?
The sixth.
No, the regular meeting next, in March.
Whatever the second Tuesday is.
March,
Second Tuesday.
second Tuesday
No,
is
second Tuesday.
March 8th.
Oh, for planning committee.
Huh?
March 8th.
March 8th.
And will we be having it at our regular time of 3 p.m.? Or are we gonna have it an early start 1
I
p.m.?
think I like one.
I like one until.
Should we
spring.
change our rules? We've gone so many months with 1 p.m.
Yes.
So I'll bring a resolution to the table to change our regular meeting date to the first Tuesday, or to 1 p.m.
I thought that's what we always did.
Our-
we can start out at 3.
Our plan our rules said 3 p.m.
Okay.
I mean, we've been all over the map, we've had a while at 9 a.m.
Yes, we did.
But 3 p.m., you know, it doesn't help anybody that works, really, so
No.
might as well have it at 1 p.m.
No, except for those of us that play golf.
We don't give a rat's.
No, because we're not done by 1 o'clock.
He ain't done by
Get
3.
better.
Okay, the reason we're having a special meeting next month is to hope that brings a
It's a team
resolution,
sport.
right? We have this all wrapped
Well,
up.
that is.
That's the reason we're doing it.
Your regular.
Okay.
Tuesday's our regular time.
Okay.
So your agenda then for that meeting should
I'm not
have,
making the rules.
consider the ordinance
we gotta-
adopted. Okay.
Then,
Excuse me?
we do have a legitimate conflict there.
Well, not until
That's
spring.
men's league on Tuesday.
Not yet.
Yeah, we don't.
Well, no,
Not
but
till
we're gonna
April.
change the resolution.
Don't worry about it right now.
Okay.
I got them to change the rules. They're gonna let me play 9
On
on days I have to, instead of always have to play 18.
You're a good soul.
I make more money playing 9 than I do.
I've been on the losing side. I know what that feels like.
You make money?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? To adjourn.
Ken, it's the whole, isn't it, that's the whole point of it
Wait till she shuts that
is
thing
to
off.
make money. That's why you don't make